Well, hello, yes, that's quite posh, isn't it? I didn't know he did
Yeah,
that.
it is.
All right, so John Robb here, interviewing Gary Powell, who's got a CV that's so long, I'll probably take up the whole interview running through it. Probably best known for Libertine Specials drummer, but also now working on this really fascinating new project, an NFT of artwork. So I guess you may have to explain what NFT is to the viewers, etc., because a lot of people are quite confused by what they actually are.
Yeah. I guess, well, hi. The simplest way of explaining an NFT that I've tried to utilize with people is, say, for instance, you were in a little village in Italy, and you decided you walked around the store and you saw a picture of the Mona Lisa being sold for €7. That is a copy, and you can get that copy absolutely anywhere. But if you were in Paris and you went to the Louvre and you tried to buy that original copy, the original, sorry, you would not be able to. Most people in the world would not be able to afford it.
Mm,
It wouldn't be on
mm,
sale anyway. That is the basis of an NFT. It's the ownership of an original piece of artwork in whatever guise it might come in, because we've got printed art as well that we're going to be doing as well, and gifts as well. It's not just a moving piece of artwork that we're hoping to actually sell. It's many different formats of creativity that can actually be utilized. It's mainly about its originality and a stamp of authentication, stating that this is a one-of piece and it cannot be replicated. And any replication of it is purely a replication that can't be sold or bartered for at any price near the value of the original piece. So most people are getting into this now because of the opportunity to actually own something that is an original from the artist who is actually trying to sell it. I'm utilizing this platform because I'm trying to raise funds for my project. So all of the money that we hopefully ascertain
mm,
from this NFT will then actually go into the creation of the graphic novel that goes with the music, the payment of the artist in order to make the animated feature that actually goes with it as well. This is all, and this allows the money is actually quite critical to getting the whole project sorted out. But more importantly for me, it actually gives the buyer somewhat kind of a voyeuristic sense that they are a part and parcel of the project moving forward. A little bit like Bandcamp and things of that nature. The difference being that instead of partaking with your finances and then hoping for something at the end, you're getting something right at the very genesis of the project moving forward, and that'll make you part and parcel of the project moving forward. Plus, as well, for me, it's kind of like, especially with reference to the music industry. Sorry, I do rebel on a little bit. With reference to the music industry, we possibly live in the only industry out of all industries where somebody can create a piece of work and then be dictated to the value of that piece of work, and then have to go via middlemen before you actually get reimbursed for all of your work, which is absolutely mental. You write a
mm.
book, your book goes on sale for the value of the book. That's that simple. You create a piece of fashion. A fashion designer will design a garment and work with a team of people, and then that fashion designer will say, this is going on sale for X amount of money because this is the effort that we've put in, these are the labor costs, these are the overheads that have been utilized, this is the money that we would like to accrue from the making of this item. In the music industry, we create a piece of work, and then somebody says, right, that's worth $2.99, and you're going to get 8 pence from that.
Yeah. Well, if you're lucky,
That's what you're going to get. That's it.
you're not,
That,
you're not,
that's it.
you're not even mentioned streaming there.
Yeah, not even mention streaming. It's absolutely ridiculous, the fact that we have no say whatsoever in the value of the work that we create. It's all dictated to us by people who, for the majority, haven't got the ability to do what that we've actually done, and who are creaming off the top of the work of the artist.
Mm,
And
mm.
I know I've got my own record label as well, so I'm kind of part and parcel of the problem.
Yeah.
But I haven't earned, I haven't earned any money from my record labels from other than artists leaving and then being reimbursed for all of the money that we've actually put in to the artist's work. I do this for the love of the artist. And I know that sounds really, really tacky, but I do it for the love of the artist. So, you know, I don't, we're not making any money from the artists that signed to my label, 25 Hour Convenience Store. It's because the only reason that the label is in existence is because I don't think there's a level playing field with reference to the business acumen that is in play today, and the utilization of middlemen, A&R men, and record labels and 360 deals and all of this nonsense that none of this is working in favor of the artist. None of it, especially now, as you mentioned, with streaming and advertisers becoming involved as well, and your streaming platforms, and they're taking their cut, and you're left with like a minimal amount for all of the work you get. So you can only actually make any money from all of your labor if you sell absolutely millions. And if you don't, you're not really making anything. So this, as far as I'm concerned, is the opportunity for an artist to say, this is what I'm doing and I'm putting out there, and we can actually work simpatico together, the artist and the voyeur.
It's the only art form where people are made to feel guilty about earning money.
Yeah. Most nights, doing all of this most nights, because I'm working with two guys, Josh Claus, it sounds like Santa Claus. Josh Claw in LA. He's the visual artist behind it. We've worked together, visualizing everything on the basis of the project that I'm trying to do. And Jim Martin, who I'm working with, he's a Hollywood script writer, and he's helping me put together this complete script. We've written pretty much the majority of what would be the graphic novel and the stories that actually kind of like entail around that, which is very, very interesting. I'm not going to give too much away about that. But it's weird, mad sci-fi, but all based on true stories that have actually happened within the world.
So is it built around, the graphic novel's built around you? Can you give that much away?
The graphic novel is built around is somewhat built around me and three other guys that I know.
So would that be like a pop group?
Would it be a pop group? No, it's this aspect of the graphic novel is based on the libs.
Okay,
so it's a weird libs sci-fi story. It sounds like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, but it does make sense because all of his stories in there are predominantly true.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think to try and make stories crazier than the ones that you've actually probably been involved in will take some imagination. Is it like a watered down version of what actually happened?
Yeah.
And is it set in a futuristic landscape, or is it set in a modern dystopian landscape?
It's set in the modern world, but there is an alternate universe involved.
Mm-hmm. Which sounds fairly true to life as well, actually.
Yeah. That's predominantly why there is an alternate universe, because when most artists get together, they are operating within the realms of what would be an alternate universe. You know, they enter a microcosm of what the real world is, and they stay within that microcosm until everybody gets off their tour buses or leaves the show and goes home, and then they enter the real world again. But most artists, you know, it's as soon as they get together, it becomes a microcosm. The world becomes completely different. Everything else outside of that microcosm kind of pales into significance. There's like, well, you know, I think there was a study done a few years ago about the mentality of artists when they sign their deal. And if you sign your deal at the age of 14, 15, 16, 17, that is the age that you stay at mentally with the people who you sign your deal with, because that is a level of communication that you actually have with those people for that duration of time.
I think that when I see, you know, when the Rolling Stones come back every 5 years for their world tour, you just think as soon as they go in the rehearsal room, the banter will be like when they were 18, won't it?
Yeah, the banter it doesn't change at all. Ours hasn't particularly changed. We talk just as ridiculously as we did when we signed our deal, God knows how many years ago, or when we signed the deal again. And that was just magnifying when we re-signed our deal in 2014. That just magnified how childish we were when we signed that deal in 2000, something like that. It was
I mean, what's your kind of role in the band? Obviously, I don't mean what you play, but in the psychodrama of the band. I mean, I imagine. I mean, I met you briefly a few times, and you don't seem. I mean, obviously, everyone has their crazy moments, but
Yeah.
there's obviously a crazier elements in the band because you don't get much crazier than some of those elements. So, do you kind of hold it all together? Are you the
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that I hold it together, but I would say that sometimes I can be a calming influence, or I can be a quite forceful influence with regards to the direction that we should actually be going in.
Mhm.
and
Mm.
and I think the guys, because we've been together for so long, and because of how we got together, I think they respect me enough to know that, for one, I don't suffer fools lightly, and everything that I do and say is at the betterment of everybody. So I will always stand behind Peter. I will always stand behind Carl. I will always stand behind John. As far as I'm concerned, nothing will actually get in the way of my relationship with those guys. And no one can come in between my relationship with those guys. Not unless those guys decide that they want something to come in between our relationship. If I see anything that I believe is kind of like untowards happening towards any guys within the band, then I'm gonna have words. I'm gonna defend and protect my guys as much as I possibly could do, because I know they would do exactly the same for me. It's just, the relationship between us is somewhat simpatico. They will look out for me because I will definitely look out for them. Definitely look out for
Mm.
them. But I will also kind of, I have no fear in saying, I don't think you should do that.
Yeah.
If you decide to do it, then be it on your own head. That's
Mhm.
no problem. That's your way. Because at the end of the day, we're all adults. We're all fully grown men. Even when we signed our deal that many years ago, we were still fully grown men then.
Yeah.
There was no kind of there was no kind of like hierarchy or parenting happening at that point in time.
Mm.
You make your decisions, you take your choices.
Mm.
If it pays off, it pays off. If it doesn't, then you need somebody there to pick the pieces up. And I try my best to either be one of the influences that wants to do that, or at least kind of like be the person with a wagging finger every now and again, saying, that's something that you really should have thought about beforehand.
Does
Regardless
that
of,
does that happen much the other way around? Is there a wagging finger to you, or
well, funny enough, in saying that, we played a show. I mean, generally no, but we did play a show in Hull, um, as part of, I think it was one of the last tours that we did, and the guys got invited to an after show party, um, at a friend of ours bar club who we've known for a very very long time. But because it was so far away from our hotel, I was and I and it, the venue was at the Hull ice hockey rink or something, and for some strange reason, it was absolutely roasting in this ice hockey rink. Sounds like an oxymoron, but it was really really hot in there, and I was just like, the showers were unavailable, and I was just like, I just feel like the most stankiest thing in the entire world. Normal circumstances, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. So I'll go have a few drinks, hang out for a while. Then I go back to the hotel, take a shower. But under these circumstances, it was just like I got changed, I put clothes on, and I sweated through the clothes that I just put on. It was like, this is disgusting. Can't do this. Got to go. So I went back to the hotel and took a long, hot shower. Little did I know that the smoke alarm was right above the shower door, the bathroom door, and it was really really hot. Lots of steam came out, set off the alarms. The whole of the hotel had to be evacuated, and there was a wedding party there. Apparently a woman had a seizure. Another ambulance had to be called for her because she got woke up in the middle of the night. All of this type of nonsense, all because of me taking a shower. But in hotels, they're not actually allowed to give out any information regarding where the incident occurred. Peter didn't go to the after show party. Peter was in the hotel. So we had management there and a whole bunch of people waiting for Peter to arrive, because everybody assumed that it was him who set the alarm off. and everybody was scurrying around like worrying. The fire brigade were there, and they were like, well, sorry, but keep this quiet. Peter Dockerty's here. Peter Dockerty's here. Got to get him out of here as quickly as possible. And everybody was just like, there was a mad furore, all of this nonsense. Then apparently Peter walked down from his room in his suit, walking his dog, and everybody went, oh. And he was like, what? We're like, you're fine. He was like, yeah. Did it come from your room? He was like, no. And then everybody went, where's Gary? And Peter went, I knew it. He was so happy. So vindicated. He was like, you all thought it was me. I knew you all thought it was me. That's why it took so long to get ready. I knew it. Yeah, it was me. But other than that, I mean, there's obviously, as you said beforehand, we all have our moments. There's been the odd moment, but no.
Do these, you know, in the graphic novel?
Yeah,
comic. Is it a novel or a comic? It's going to be a novel, isn't it?
It's going to be. It's going to be 4 graphic novels that can actually then be sold as a feature with all of the novels put together in one, with a feature film that actually goes along with that.
So, I mean, yes, it's anecdotal, the stories, and it's played off against, you know, a superannuated background. But do you actually get a little bit deeper, you know, like Alan Moore would? Is it like, you know, the relationships, the psychodramas between the members of the band, the fictional bands, shall we say, or the characters in the novel? Is that going to be worked out in there, or is it purely anecdotal and story-led?
This is purely anecdotal, but it's purely anecdotal to the point of view where you can actually look at the individual figures and then make your own assessment about the individual figures and how they play their roles within the realms of the graphic novel and also within the realms of the individuals as well. You know, it's kind of gives you an opportunity to see them for what they are, as opposed to looking at the relationships on the basis of somebody else's point of view. You know, at the end of the day, I may spend a lot of time with the guys when we are together, but it's still my own point of view, you know, regarding why their relationships play out the way they do. You know, the only people that can really, truly answer that would be Peter and Carl. They're the only ones that can really answer it. So I'm not gonna, I just thought I'm not gonna get into the realms of trying to psychoanalyze their relationship, especially in the realms of a graphic novel. I mean, that's just, no, that's, you know, I figured that was folly. But giving you another insight into looking at each of the individuals from my own point of view, I thought that was kind of the best way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is this part of your background? Were you a comics kid or graphic novels? Were you reading these things when you're growing up, or is this something because it came up in a conversation? Wow, that's a cool idea. Let's do it.
But a little bit of the two. I mean, I did read graphic novels, and I still do read graphic novels. I always read comics as a kid. I was a big 2000 AD fan, and then I was into Justice League, and then the Macross Saga, all of that type of stuff. I was really into Robotech specifically, and Battlestar Galactica, because I used to watch it as a kid. You know, I read all of that stuff. And Archie was my favorite because you get the bubble gum, which over here I think was Bazooka Joe. In the States, it was Archie. Yeah, it was Archie in the States, and I used to read that as well. So I had Archie and Bazooka Joe in over here. So yeah, so it has always been kind of like part and parcel of my own escapism, my own methodology of escapism. You know, as a kid, I wasn't really allowed to do a great deal. My parents were somewhat authoritarian, to say the least. So I locked myself up in my room and read comics, read graphic novels, and it's just something that I just carried on doing as an adult.
Yeah, so do you think being a musician, in a sense, is kind of like a real life version of living in a comic?
It's also a massive relief and release as well. You know, if you look at most actors, for likes of your Dustin Hoffmans, your Robert De Niro's, your Al Pacino's, your Tom Cruise's, if you look at them all, they're all diminutive. They're all really, really small, but then they create these characters that are larger than life, because I don't think most of them never had the opportunity to be larger than life when they were growing up. They were always the small kid, the picked on kid. I was picked on for different reasons, you know, being transatlantic, coming back and forth all of the times, and you know, that was my thing. And my parents as well, having to go to church and not being able to do the things that I really wanted to do. Them spending more time concentrating on setting me up for adult life instead of allowing me to really enjoy the moments as a child. when I actually have the opportunity to express myself, I grabbed hold of that. That was a great opportunity for me as far as I was concerned, especially from the point of view of me being able to do it on my own terms. It
So
could
what?
never be
Yeah.
me being a musician could not be dictated to me by anybody. I had to do it my own way. And I
So
was just like, yeah, that's amazing.
so why did you choose music instead of art? Was music just an easier place to get into initially?
I think it was always music was always my first love. Music was always
Okay.
my first love. Yeah. I've always been always gravitated towards music and all types of music as well. I mean, I remember starting off. I wanted to be a guitar player because I was really into George Benson. Because my dad played me a bunch of music that I thought George Benson had written, and it wasn't George Benson's music. It was the Beatles' music that George Benson had covered. And then we explored the
Yeah.
Beatles, and then we went down the rabbit hole of listening to things like the New York Dolls. I remember my dad played me the New York Dolls when I was a kid, and I'm just like, what is this? This is amazing. But then on Sundays when I'd come back from church, I'd have to tidy my room and make my bed in a military fashion so my dad could throw a coin on the bed and catch the coin. And while all of this is happening, he'd be downstairs with his home-built stereo with the diamond needles. He had a whole rack of diamond needles that he bought and equalizers that he built himself. He was an engineer. He loved all that type of stuff. And he'd be playing music from third world reggae to Bruce Springsteen to Richard Strauss to Nick Drake to Leonard Cohen, all on a Sunday on one day. I'd hear all of this. When I was a kid growing up, I hated Richard Strauss, hated Bruce Springsteen, hated Leonard Cohen. I hated, Bobby Zimmerman. I hated all of these characters because I heard it at a point in time when I was wanting to express myself. I wanted to go out and play with other kids. I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do, but I couldn't. And it only got to that point when I kind of remember when this point happened, but there was a point when I heard one of my dad's records and just went, actually, that's kind of cool. And then sneakily started going through his whole record collection and finding stuff, and it was just like, wow, this is amazing. And not knowing, unbeknownst to me, that my dad, who said you're not allowed to touch it because that was his pride and joy, but then him kind of like sneaking and watching me go through his record collection and finding a Rimsky-Korsakov Capriccio Espanol record and putting that thing on, and then maybe finding the Israelites and putting that on, and then going out and buying my own vinyl. And the first gig I ever went to was Miles Davis. I got taken by my dad's friends to see Miles Davis. It's the first gig I ever went to see.
Jesus, I mean, where do you go after that?
I know where do you go after that, but it's sending you down the rabbit hole. It really sending you down the rabbit hole, because at that point in time, I didn't have anybody to confer with. So if I should have been going to see the Smiths. I like the Smiths. I should have been going to see the Smiths, and then I could have like talked to friends at school. Have you got this vinyl? Have you got this? Have you got that? Or if there's a gig happening, or I could lie about going to the gig, but I can't. Well, who am I going to talk to at the age of 10, 11 years old about Miles Davis? There's absolutely nobody. Yeah. I got the Stan Getz, Stan Getz with Miroslav Vitas and whomever. There's nobody I can talk to about it. But then venturing down the rabbit hole and learning more about my dad just opening up the world to me of the fact that as we are told to perceive the world, that is not the world. And then understanding that all he's ever been doing was preparing me for everything that the world will actually then offer. That's kind of, I look back on it and go, yeah, everything that he tried to do, everything that both my parents tried to do was kind of genius. I wouldn't be here now without them allowing me to then, when I was ready, being able to express myself.
Oh, that's interesting. So it was like a master plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that discipline he installed in you when you were younger, is that something that now you really appreciate? Because music's a very chaotic world, but if you're disciplined, you actually create better art.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree anymore. Last night I was up until God knows how long with the guys in LA and going over edits of things that we need to do, getting up at 6:30 this morning and re-catching up with those guys, and then starting to send files out at 7 o'clock this morning, all day yesterday, re-evaluating music that I'd been doing. And it's especially when you're at home, and you're a musician and you know that, there's a few gigs coming up. There's a few gigs coming up soon. All I need to do is those few gigs, and I got a little bit of money. I don't really need to do anything. I don't really need to do anything. But it's not about the earning of money. It's about my creative curiosities. It's about actually bettering myself as an individual and a musician. And without me actually putting that effort in, I'll never get any better. And I actually do want to continually get better, because I don't think I'm good enough at anything.
Yeah.
And I think if you are a musician or if you are a creative, if you don't have that mindset, you'll be standing in time and you'll never improve. Your art will never get any better. You'll never be able to kind of go down, to explore. That's what I was trying to say. You'll never be able to explore all of the avenues that are available to you. Of the 18 tracks that I've done, musically, it is all so different. There's a massive orchestrated string arrangements in there. There's some fast rocking there. There's some really kind of dystopian, weird sounds in there as well. It's just, it covers the gambit of all of the emotions that are actually available within the realms of the graphic novel.
So this is a soundtrack for the graphic novel.
Yeah, it's a soundtrack, but the tracks as well, because there's vocals on there. I for what it's worth, I sing. I attempt to sing, and then I try to create weird sounds or really kind of like beautiful melodic tones. There's tone poems. There's all types of nonsense in there.
So will these be? So the graphic novel will be available in a digital format with the music on it as well as being a printed graphic novel. So what are the different formats it's going to come out in?
The musical will be available via streaming services with a digital graphic novel, and then you'll be able to download the music with a printed graphic novel sent to you, or you can buy it physically and buy the physical copy together. So graphic novel with the music attached to it in MP3 form.
Okay, so it's multi-format then, yeah.
It's about utilizing all of the facets that are available to us now, but taking us back to a point in time when it's not just about downloading music. I mean, I know you like me, John, but there was a point in time when when you were a kid, you'd go to a shop, you'd buy the record of choice, and you'd sit down and you'd read that record. And you'd read everything about that record, and you look at the
sleeve
artwork.
Notes. Yeah.
You read the sleeve notes. You know everything about it, where it was made, who worked on it. This is about utilizing all of those old methodologies and placing them into a modern day format, so we can hopefully. I mean, may sound very egotistical, but hopefully, it's about appreciating all of the work that's involved, as opposed to going onto iTunes and seeing an album and downloading the 2-3 tracks that you heard on Six Music and ignoring the rest of it, and not really appreciating the length and breadth of all of the work that was created by the creator.
Creating a world to get lost in. Really is the rabbit, actually making the rabbit hole, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
not just a little bit. Like streaming's like the few blades of grass in front of the rabbit hole, then you move on to the next field, isn't it? That's it. Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing is, well, with the label, you have streaming service meetings with managers of your likes of your 7 Digitals and your Spotifys and so forth about the new artists that are coming up. And with the label, because I've got my own label, 25 Hour Convenience Store, we'll try to get as much exposure for the artists that we have on the label via these different platforms. And you put on a new record. So I've got like the Purists, their record's coming out real soon, and another band called the Dead Freights, who were just sorting out their contract from Southampton. We'll go to meetings with those guys, and we'll put on a record in front of 7 Digital or whomever else, and they'll butt their heads, listen to music, and chances are, whether they like the song or not, they'll go, yeah, that's good. But then the first thing they'll do is they go straight to the socials. What's the numbers? How many people are following them? And that's all they really care about. That's all they really care about. What are the numbers? It could be the best record in the entire world, but if you've only got 25 views on YouTube, No one's interested. They're not going to give it a push because, as far as I'm concerned, well, obviously, the general public doesn't like it. But what about you liking it? What about back in the day, in the 40s and the 50s specifically, when you have an A&R artist go, "Oh my God, that sounds amazing. What can we do to get this out to absolutely everybody?" Where is that mentality? That mentality has died, along with the commercial mentality of the people buying the music in order to go out there and find something really, really interesting, and then really kind of become ingratiated with all of the work that's put in front of you. Not just listen to 2 or 3 songs and then switch it off. The amount of
Yeah.
times now, sorry, I do go on. The amount of times now when I'll hear a record on the radio or on TV or somewhere else, and I'll go, "Oh my God, that record's amazing. I've got to get that record." Only then to find out that I've got that record. And it's just lost in the earth of this massive digital paradigm of music that is just a plethora of music that I just cannot get through. And so I'll hear a great record and then I'll lose that great record.
I guess it's different roles, isn't it? The digital is the opening, in it, and if you could entice you and pull you in, then you're down the rabbit hole, and then it's worked, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, not all groups create rabbit holes, and music has lots of different functions anyway, which is fine. Yeah. But very much in the world that you're operating in, and with the Libertines, and you, and Peter, and all those people, it's all about creating these worlds, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the Libertines is like a world, and that idea of the Albion thing, the hotel in Margate, you know, this is all, it all plays into a world, and so in the band, there's all these kind of competing worlds. It's quite fascinating. You know, the world that you're creating is quite different from the world that they're creating, but I guess there's overlaps as well, isn't there?
There's overlaps, because at the end of the day, before we all became the Libertines, we were all individuals. And we had our own wants, we had our own likes, we had our own whatever. And then all we actually did in order to create the Libertines was bring our personalities into what is the Libertines. And it's the personalities within the Libertines that have actually created the Libertines. And, you know, people, again, this is part and parcel of the problem with regards to the fact that we buy into the end product without actually wanting to go on the journey with everybody. You know, that you know, maybe that's me generalizing a little bit. Maybe that's an over generalization, but I do think it's true in that nobody really, you know, the purchase of music now has just become such a capitalistic intent that we just want to own the music without actually wanting to understand why we want to own that music, without wanting to go on that journey with the artist.
You know, it's become the soundtrack to other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's become like a Spotify playlist to go to the gym with or sit and tube with.
Yeah,
exactly. Really, at its very best, the journey is the music itself, isn't it? So when you put a record on, you go into that world, don't you?
Yeah, totally go into that world.
Sorry? And what you're doing here is an attempt to obviously you can't readdress the whole music culture, but it's a way, it's a personal way of readdressing this.
Yeah, I know I'm not readdressing the balance, as it were, but I'm hopefully giving those willing to take the journey with me and the opportunity to look at the whole process in a different fashion, or a fashion that was available to us beforehand. You know, I'm not
the NFTs that are coming out, the graphics, the style graphics, the style of the art in them, is that the style of the graphic novel? Or is it different?
It'll be part of the style of the graphic novel. I've already got hopefully a Brazilian artist called Bianca Toloi, who's she's really quite well known within the South American market, and I've contacted her about the possibility of doing some work as well. And graphic novels and graphics in general in South America have a completely different look to how graphic novels over here would look, because the overall intention regarding the environment that you're in ends up being a little bit different. Graphic novels over here generally look a little bit darker, a little bit grayer, you know, because that is the environment that we live in. It's a sunny, climed environment in South America. It's very rainforesty. It's green. It's beautiful, lavish colors, and I want to utilize her ability to actually pull out the environment to actually change the color of the music that I've actually created, so that when we actually go, because there's a section of the graphic novel that happens in Brazil, and I would very much like it to have a very, very Brazilian element to it, so that you look at it and you hear it and you feel like you're transported via the different colors musically and visually as well. So that when we go to Japan, there's a Japan section. I want it to be more manga orientated. So then you get completely transported stylistically via the colors of the music and the colors of the visual. And then the UK and the Europe becomes a different story altogether. So that's kind of a general idea.
That's fascinating. So it's almost like a trip within a trip.
Yeah.
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 And also what's fascinating about that is the way you talk about the music will change to go with the graphics. So if you've got the Brazilian artist making this kind of lush green Amazonian backdrop, the music you create, not deliberately, but just by looking at the images, you will kind of just let yourself go and be influenced by the images to create the music. So it's not like you're going to do a samba.
No.
But you'll make... Yeah, so it's not as corny as that, but it's but the music will reflect the images that way. It's that way around, basically.
Yeah, and vice versa. The music will reflect the images will reflect the music as well. It's kind of, I think everything hopefully will work kind of somewhat kinetically or sympathically.
So you have to work very closely with the artists. Is this why you're up to about, you had to get up at 6:30 this morning to check things, because you are working that tight and that close?
Yeah.
And have you ever met these people, or is this a very 21st century? You're actually doing a lot of this on Zoom, email.
We're doing a lot of it on Zoom, but I have been to LA, and we've worked out in LA as well. Specifically with Jim Martin, the writer. Because I kept come up with all of the ideas, but I'm not claiming to be Archimedes. I ain't no Socrates. I know if I try to write it, I'd probably get it wrong. So I may as well come up with the ideas and then put it in the hands of somebody who actually then can translate it into something that would make sense to people, other than my foolish nonsense.
That's a superpower strength. It's the coming up with the idea and the overarching concept is so powerful. But the smart thing is, it's like being in a band, isn't it? I mean, yes, you could play guitar, but Pete and Carl could play guitar in a certain way that connects to lots of people.
What? So in a certain way, or just better?
Well, I don't believe there is a better. I mean, even if you can't play a chord, if you hit a guitar, it does make an interesting noise.
Sure.
You can relate to. Yeah. But in the context of what Libertines do, what they do is important in that part of it. But they couldn't do it without you playing the drums. So it's the idea of art as a team. So this is what you learn in the band, isn't it? So, and maybe the band that you're in currently, obviously you're still in Libertines, etc. But the band, the way you're doing the graphic novel and this thing, it's like a band, isn't it? It's a band that doesn't play gigs but creates graphic novels.
Yeah, it is all about at the end of the day, it's just all about communication. I'm trying to communicate something to the general public in a way that hopefully they can then perceive and like. But I also have to communicate with the people that I work with, and then communicate with me in order for us to actually get everything out to the wider general public.
So are you kind of one of those people that just when you wake up in the morning, you get about a million ideas in your head?
Yeah, I have trouble sleeping. Sometimes, yeah. Last night I said I was going to go to bed early last night because I was really, really tired. Wedding on Saturday, drank a little bit too much. Sunday, getting old now, so the old kind of like just having McDonald's in the morning and I'll be fine. That doesn't work anymore. Like hangovers last a week. Yeah, so I was going to go to bed early last night because I was absolutely knackered. But then I remembered something. Something regarding with the equipment in the studio, and I figured, well, let me just kind of like just set that up first. But then because I had a track up as well, I kind of like checked the sounds of it a little bit, and then it was like, well, I really need to make sure that I'm set up for tomorrow. So let's just noodle with this a little bit, and then by the time that happens, my brain is already in the zone. So the next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, that totally works. And it's like, gone over early nights. I cannot honestly remember the last time I went to bed before 1 o'clock in the morning, but I'm always up at about 6:30.
Wow. So you still have your father's discipline.
Yeah.
You got both the rock and roll and the discipline at the same time.
I think that's the only way to actually do it. I think most people actually do have that. Peter definitely used to have that. And hopefully one day he will actually get back to that. There was a point in time when you just could not see him without a guitar in his hand. It was just impossible. And it woe betide anybody who got in the way of him actually just coming up with an idea. I've did it a couple of times, and it was just kind of like, whoa, yeah, I'll just be over here. Sorry. And I would love for him to get back to that, because that was a Peter that was, you know, it's still the same Peter, but he needs to tap into that part of himself again. And once he gets back into that again.
Or there's just a finite, I mean, this is the dread of any ideas person. There's a finite amount of ideas anybody has. You know, you could be like Rimbaud and you end up becoming a gun runner because you run out of poems.
Yeah, but I also think that's a state of mind that could be kind of like internal as well. You know, the more you tell yourself, there's no more ideas, then obviously there's no more ideas.
It's believing in the idea. So it's actually believing, even if the idea is terrible, it's an idea, and it's a catalyst for a better idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a way, they're all pure, aren't they? So they all have to come out, get written in lists, or just mumbled into phones. And
yeah, exactly. Oh my God, you know, that's me. That is absolutely me.
So when does the NFTs now? The NFTs ready now to finance these projects. So there's not an exact timeline, but what's the approximate timeline of when these things get released?
Oh God, I'd love the whole thing to be released by spring next year, so we could actually get the graphic novel completed. We could actually then hopefully, because obviously we won't be able to do everything at the same time, we can actually then get the graphic novel completed. We can actually get the animated shorts to go along with the graphic novel and the music completed. So because there'll be 4 movements to split the 18 tracks up, get them done. And then hopefully off the basis of that, work on the entirety of what would be the whole animated feature and everything together based on about an hour's worth of music and film.
Obviously, it's going to be like a film as well, like an animated film.
I've spoken. You know, I'm in touch with. I'm in talks with a couple of companies now, a couple of production companies who, once I actually kind of like gave them an indication as to the length and breadth of what I wanted to do, and then sat down with a little bit of pee trickling down my leg, waiting for them to say, "Are you fucking mental?" They've all just said, "Yeah, it's a great idea. That's a great idea. Let's actually figure that out." I'm just like, "Oh, okay, Jesus. Well, pissed myself for no reason."
I guess the closest I can think of it in pop culture terms, and this is probably like quite wide off the mark, will be like Yellow Submarine, the Beatles animation. You know, I mean, I'm sure yours is quite different from that, but it proves it can be done in pop cultural terms, can't it?
Yeah. You know, and more importantly as well, I think it is a great example. John Hasselen lives. He's kind of like the ultimate in Beatles fans. When we used to be constantly on the road, me and John would hang out together a lot, and we walk into a shop, and for some strange reason, the Beatles would just start playing. Not because everybody knows that John is a big Beatles fan. It's just that he attracts everything that is Beatlesque. It just always happens around him. And I remember being in Hamburg once. We were just kind of like talking about, this was prior to us recording the second album, talking about, I remember asking him what he thought the Beatles would sound like now. And his answer was Sgt. Pepper. And I was like, are you mental? Of course the Beatles wouldn't sound like Sgt. Pepper. You gotta remember, they were the most forward-thinking sonic artists of their time. For them to sit still and create something that they created years ago and just replicate that again, no. If the Beatles were around now, if there was a variation of the Beatles allowed to exist now, because obviously the industry doesn't allow it to exist now with all of the services available, but if there was a version of the Beatles allowed to exist now, they would be so far ahead of the curve musically. Far ahead of the curve musically. Of course they would do. It's the Beatles. That's what made the Beatles the Beatles. The fact that they were
but what was really brilliant, it was still pop music.
It was still pop music. Yeah.
Yeah, they took everybody on the trip. They took everybody down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. If you look at the Beatles from the first release to the last release, you can see they've taken you on a journey of discovery all the way through. They haven't stayed stagnant. They've completely explored all of the realms of creativity that are actually available to them. And you know, that's why the Beatles are the Beatles. And I think it's something that is kind of like taken for granted, just how forward thinking they were moving forward. Just how they were just wow. Beatles were next level, man.
Yeah, and I think and there's a reflection of what you're trying to do here as well. I think the idea that because you're a drummer and a beat combo doesn't mean you're just a drummer and a beat combo. Not that there's in the matter of being just, but any artist should apply the ideas and the energy to any art form, you know, and that's what the Beatles were doing at the time. Yes. And in a sense, this is an extension of that kind of thinking, that free thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. As far as I'm concerned, you know, within the realms of the Libertines, most people just see me as Gary the drummer. I personally see myself as a musician. You know, I see there is a greater picture than that. I've been creating music for brands like Burberry and Christian Louboutin and Burberry commercials and God knows whatever else, and producing and writing for different artists. I've been doing that for ages. But if you want to see me as just Gary the drummer, then that's fine, because as far as I'm concerned, ain't no shame in the game. I enjoy being Gary the drummer. I do enjoy that. But in my heart of hearts, I know exactly, well, I don't know exactly who I am. I'm going down the rabbit hole and trying to find out who I am by creating as many different things as I possibly can, to utilizing all of the things that are available to me. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'll just end the interview there. So thank you for that, Gary. That was
really great talking to you.
Yeah. So that's the end of the interview points, but I'll just so. So in November, actually, I do this books and music sort of conference in Manchester. You know, so if you're around, if you want to come up.
If I'm around, I'd love to. We might be on the road, and I think I'm sure in November we are around Manchester at about that point in time. So
if it works, that'd be brilliant.
Love to come. It'd be great to catch up with you again. Anyway, just be really good to catch up.
Yeah, so, good to catch up. Not those kind of brief walking past. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, or right. weird 2D Zoom things. Well, I'll send you the dates and
yeah, please do.
That'd be really good to come up to. Are you back out the specials as well?
No, I've stopped doing the specials now. Yeah.
Have you? Yeah.
I had to stop doing the specials due to illness. I couldn't carry on anymore, which was a shame because it was just before they were recording their last album. So I went into the studio with them to start doing the album, and then something happened, and I had to bow out and let them carry on.
Yeah, it's a great album actually. I thought it was
great album. Yeah,
it's one of their best albums. That should not happen, should it?
Yeah,
at this stage of the game, it should just be a bit like one song you kind of half remembered what you meant to sound like, and the rest of it's a bit crap.
Yeah,
but actually, the whole album is really strong.
The whole album is really, really good. Really great album. But I'm still in touch with Barry.
Yeah,
I'm still in touch with Barry Hall. I'm still in touch with Lynn Valley. You know, he's back in the country now. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. I'm still in touch with those guys and love them dearly.
Yeah, they're great guys, aren't they? Yeah. So what was it like working with Eddie Grant? I really liked his records, but I never really met anybody else that ever did. He's kind of
awesome.
Yeah, I think he's incredibly talented. But
but he was just generally a nice guy who, you know, I think he appreciated the fact that I learned his music well enough to actually perform it, and he was just like, yeah. Cool. The first thing that we ever did, we did a live performance on Top of the Pops 2 of Electric Avenue, because that was at the point in time when Electric Avenue became a big hit again because of the Miami music, the digital music thing, remix of it done there. And that's when it all kind of kicked off again. And we did that, and I'm performing as well with Spandau Ballet, Midyear, and Ultravox, and a few other artists. I think ABC as well. They were performing. It was an 80s special. And I met Midyear for the first time. And this was the first major thing that I actually did. And I got invited to do this with Eddie Grant. And then afterwards, he just kind of came up and was just like, you know, something I didn't really get to talk to you. I mean, I got hired as a session musician. And he was like, yeah, it was, you did all right. And then he went, we're going for a curry. You want to come for a curry? I was like, yeah. We went for a curry. And it was great. There was the hierarchy, it completely disappeared. It was just a bunch of guys just hanging out, having a good time. And I was like, wow, I had no idea it would be like this. I thought it would be an employer-employee scenario. I'm here to play drums for you. And he was like, no, I really like him. You're a good kid. Let's do some more
Mm.
stuff. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna see if I can find that because it's a great
Yeah.
song. It's so
Yeah.
it's so different from anybody else. It doesn't really
Yeah.
fit in a genre, which is quite fascinating, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I think it was just him, just kind of like, I think he was into different genres of music, and he just utilized his ability to soak up all of the different genres of music to create something really, really special.
Yeah, it's really, really good. So brilliant. All right, Gary. Well, I'll email those dates to you, and
Fantastic.
I'll leave you to your ideas, Will.
Actually, I'm gonna have breakfast now because I haven't had a chance to eat yet. So I'm gonna have something to eat, have a cup of tea, and then get back to it. I've got to pick up my son at, oh my goodness, what's that? I've got to pick up my son at 3:30, and then there's a Windrush celebration happening at the church at the end of the street, and he wants to go and see that. And I'm like, that's genius. He's only 10 years old. I don't have to drag him to anything.
Oh,
He
that's good.
told me
Yeah.
about it. He wants to go and see it. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take him to see that as well.
That'd be powerful for him. It's good to know
Yeah.
the culture, isn't it? The proper
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I mean,
Brilliant.
you know, again, it's something that everybody should know. And it's part and parcel of British culture. And what makes Britain is the fact that Britain has always been a melting pot of different countries. You know,
Yeah. When you live in the cities, it's great. I live in Manchester, and it's great, you know, because you see that all the time. It's what makes it a brilliant place.
But it's always been that. It's always been that. I've got artwork from Black communities in London in the 19th century. They didn't. Black people didn't arrive here in 1948. They've been here from the dawn of time. The soldiers that protected Hadrian's War against the skirmishing Scottish were a Black legion of Roman soldiers. Been here since the dawn of time. And it's part and parcel of what society is. When what do they call the Scandinavians, the Vikings, and those guys? No, before the Vikings, the Normans, when they started coming into the country, most of the British settlers at that point in time, they fled to France. This country is made up of predominantly Normans. Everybody did a run into France. There's not a great deal of people who are 100% English from this country. And if you did find somebody who's 100% English from this country, you might be somewhat surprised at what they look like. Because I don't think anybody who's blonde and blue-eyed in this country definitely is not 100% English.
Well, Anglo-Saxon is German. So yeah. Like an art melting pot is where the best stuff is, isn't it? You know. All different cultures and different ways of looking at the world and different ways of thinking about it. The little sparks in between and what the good stuff happens, isn't it?
Yeah. It's amazing. The term melting pot came from 18th century New York, when you had all of the five boroughs. That's where the melted determined the Polish, the Italians, the Africans, the Irish, when they created that melting pot in New York. That's where the term came from. But there's only one real, true melting pot in the world right now, and it's a melting pot within the United Kingdom, and we don't appreciate it enough. We don't appreciate the significance of what it means to be British in this country. And I think as soon as we do that, we'll have people appreciating things like the St. George's flag. I see the St. George's flag, I think racist. I see a bloke with a St. George's flag painted on his face, and I automatically are like, oh, I don't want to hang out with that guy. You look like a bit of a nutter, and you're probably racist. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't.
No.
It's because we don't have a proper, true appreciation of what British culture actually is.
It's redefining patriotism.
Yeah.
You know, it's the total opposite of Nigel Farage's version.
Yeah. Absolutely agreed.
All the things that make this country great are what give him nightmares.
Yeah.
Pop culture does that in a sense, doesn't it? And like, you know, of course, specials were a really important part of that. You know, and
pop culture is really, really, really important to with regards to how we see this country right now.
Yeah, it was the melting pot on a stage, and I always thought it was interesting. By the time we got to the Prodigy, nobody noticed those. The multicultural.
Nobody noticed.
Whereas the specials, it was actually a big deal, and there'd be massive fights in the crowd and all that, because it was so hard for some people to understand.
Yeah,
I thought it was a victory that 20 years later that, you know, nobody saw the colours in the Prodigy. That just it is what it is, and it's brilliant. You know, there are wins. It's not always crap.
I mean, playing with the specials as well, especially when we did the American tour, it was amazing to go to gigs and see guys dressed as skinheads, and knowing full well that those guys, for the majority, all of those guys were cool. They were the original, you know, they were dressed as skinheads because they were the original skinheads weren't racist. The original skinheads were into reggae, were into punk. They had no qualms regarding, you know,
they were just sharp to look like West Indian kids, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, Don Lett's film's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant film.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, Gary, so I'll let you go and have your breakfast.
I'll stop rabbiting on. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, brilliant.
I spend all day by myself, so I'm like, I could talk to somebody.
I know, it gets like that these days.
Kidnapped.
Brilliant. All right, well, I'll speak to you soon then, yeah.
I'll speak to you soon. All the best. Really good seeing you, John.
Yeah, good to see you, Gary. All right.
Yeah,
bye.
catch you later, mate. Goodbye.